Imagine, like, walking into a bank vault. The walls are this thick, impenetrable steel, the tumblers on the door are mathematically perfect, and the whole structure is just designed to keep out absolutely anyone trying to get in.
Right. It's built for maximum security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you wake up inside this vault, and as you look around, analyzing the security systems, you suddenly realize the thief trying to break in, well, is you.
Yeah, and it creates this incredibly disorienting premise, especially when you consider that the vault itself is constructed entirely out of the architect's own memories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a deeply claustrophobic, incredibly internal space.
Welcome to today's deep dive. If you're listening right now, you know we love dissecting complex ideas, and today we have this really fascinating collection of source material. It's centered around a framework introduced in a text called The Subliminal Heist by Max and Claude.
Right, and it's subtitled A Novel of Procedural Dreaming.
Yes, but reading through our research, it actually functions as this highly technical, almost psychological manual for hacking your own mind.
It really does.
So our mission today for this deep dive is exploring exactly how human consciousness structures trauma, the hidden architecture of grief, and how conscious lucid dreaming might actually be the ultimate tool to, like, seal back a fragmented mind.
Yeah, and we will be examining this through the journey of a man named Marcus Chen. He's an individual who finds himself trapped in this recurring, completely impossible lucid dream.
A dream he can't seem to wake up from.
Right. But as we unpack the mechanics of his experience, we are going to dive straight into the real-world neuroscience and consciousness studies that form the foundation of these concepts.
Which is just mind-blowing.
It is. So, for anyone listening, prepare to have your baseline assumptions about memory, the finality of death, and just the fundamental nature of your own mind actively challenged.
Let's start with the immediate environment Marcus wakes up in. It's a library, but it completely defies standard physics.
Yeah, the impossible geometry.
Exactly. Books are stacked at these aggressive angles that should immediately collapse, but they hold perfectly still. And the entire space is bathed in this distinct pearl gray luminescence.
It sets a very specific mood.
It does. And right there on the wall is this glowing equation. It reads, the sum of self equals the integral of time, multiplied by intention, multiplied by resistance, with respect to x.
Yeah, that equation is so central to understanding the mechanics of what is happening in his head.
It really is.
Because it's a space governed by dream logic, yes,
right.
But it operates with this absolute mathematical precision.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's not just set dressing, you know? If we look at the variables, the sum of self suggests that the goal is integration, like summing up the fragmented parts of the psyche to create a whole self.
Right, and the integral implies a continuous process over a boundary.
Exactly. So you are integrating time multiplied by intention, multiplied by resistance.
It basically formalizes the psychological healing process. Because, you know, passive time doesn't heal trauma.
Right, the whole time heals all wounds thing is a myth.
Totally. Time has to be multiplied by active intention, and crucially, it must engage with resistance. You can't just bypass your defense mechanisms. You actually have to work through them.
Yeah, and it's all integrated with respect to X, which is the unknown variable of the deep subconscious. And the sensory details grounding this math are just so visceral.
Oh, the details are incredible.
Like when Marcus pulls a book from a shelf, it's physically warm. It pulses like a living biological organ.
Creepy, but fascinating.
Right. And he encounters this door with a brass handle completely green with verdigris, which suggests this immense age and neglect. And eventually he finds a wall covered entirely in his own frantic, tiny handwriting, repeating a single phrase, I am locked in.
Which is terrifying. But then a voice in this dream tells Marcus he needs to stop treating this like a nightmare and start treating it as a heist.
Yeah, which is a huge shift.
It is. Reframing the experience from a nightmare to a heist shifts the locus of control. I mean, in a nightmare, you are the victim of your subconscious.
You're just running away.
Exactly. But in a heist, you are an active agent exploiting the vulnerabilities of a system.
See, I struggle a bit with the underlying logic of that metaphor, though.
How so?
Well, in a traditional heist, you are bypassing a vault security to steal contents from someone else. You are taking something that isn't yours, or maybe reclaiming an object a villain took from you.
Right.
So who is the victim here? Are we looking at something akin to, like, partitioning a computer's hard drive to sandbox a severely corrupted system file, except the hardware is your physical brain and the corrupted file is your own memory?
Yeah, the partition metaphor actually works really well, but let's push the mechanism further. A computer partition is static. This mental architecture is dynamic. It actively defends itself.
Oh, I see.
So in this scenario, Marcus is the thief,
Yeah.
he is the vault, and he is the victim. He installed this elaborate psychological lock to quarantine a specific corrupted file.
The traumatic memory of his sister Sarah.
Exactly. Her sudden death from an aneurysm back on May 17th, 2012. What's fascinating here is the assertion that trauma doesn't just passively erase or suppress memories.
It's doing something active.
Right. The brain actively constructs complex neural architectures to quarantine them. The lock Marcus built isn't a prison. It's a highly sophisticated defense mechanism.
Because his brain knows he can't handle it.
Exactly. His consciousness is calculating that confronting this truth directly would cause a catastrophic system failure, so it just walls the truth off.
Wow. So he literally had to fragment his own mind just to maintain basic waking functionality.
Basically, yeah.
But once he realizes why he partitioned this memory, the obvious question is why this specific hyper-detailed architecture? Like, why build an impossible library with spiral staircases and pearl gray light?
Right. Why not a bunker or a literal safe?
Yeah. And our sources reveal that Marcus didn't spontaneously generate this geometry. He actually used a pre-existing blueprint left behind by his sister, Sarah.
Yes. And Sarah's background is absolutely critical to the mechanics of this architecture. She was a trauma therapist specializing in advanced consciousness studies, and she actively utilized lucid dreaming techniques in her clinical practice.
She was kind of a pioneer.
Very much so. And before her sudden death, she was deliberately preparing her own consciousness to cross the threshold of mortality. She was essentially mapping the topological territory of the mind and, documenting it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because her core philosophy, which is found in journals Marcus accesses inside the dream, it fundamentally flips our standard neurobiological model on its head.
It really does.
She posited that the brain is not a generator of consciousness. It is a receiver and a translator, like a highly complex radio antenna.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, because the antenna doesn't manufacture the music, right? It tunes into a specific frequency and translates that signal into something we can process.
It's a profound paradigm shift. It moves us from a materialist view to a post-materialist one.
Right.
Because if the brain is merely a filtering mechanism, reducing a vast universal consciousness into a manageable, localized human experience, then biological death isn't the termination of consciousness.
It's simply the destruction of that specific biological tuning mechanism.
Exactly. The signal itself remains entirely intact.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If we accept that premise and Marcus starts inducing these elaborate lucid dreams just so he can interact with the projection or, I don't know, perhaps the actual persisting signal of his dead sister, aren't we looking at massive psychological risk?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, isn't this just a highly sophisticated form of denial? Why shouldn't he just wake up, engage in standard cognitive behavioral therapy, process the grief, and move forward in consensus reality?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
And the danger of addiction to the dream state is actually a central tension in the research.
Oh, they do address it.
Yes. Dr. Helena Martinez, who is Marcus's waking world therapist, she addresses this directly. She doesn't dismiss the dream work, but she insists on a really strict framework of what she calls dual consciousness.
Dual consciousness, okay.
Because the risk of neglecting the physical body and your waking responsibilities to just live inside an idealized subconscious construct is incredibly high.
Yeah, you could easily just abandon your waking life because the simulated reality feels more profound. Or just easier.
Precisely. So Helena argues that the dream state is strictly a workshop, not a residence.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. It is only therapeutic if the insights and the neural rewiring achieved in the lucid state are systematically brought back and integrated into consensus reality.
So you have to bring the loot back from the heist.
Yes. The goal of this mental heist isn't to live inside the vault. The objective is to utilize the dream's unique capacity for paradox.
Paradox.
Yeah, its ability to let Marcus hold both the deep, visceral joy of an ongoing relationship with his sister and the devastating, heavy sorrow of her physical absence simultaneously.
Wow.
You use that paradox to heal the waking mind's inability to process conflicting truths.
So it requires integrating the partition data back into the main drive, basically.
Exactly.
And if this locked room architecture functions as a reliable integration tool for Marcus, we have to ask if this is just a bespoke psychological quirk or if it represents, like, a universal human operating system.
Right. Does it work for everyone?
Exactly. Because Marcus eventually open sources this heist. He takes Sarah's blueprint and begins guiding other individuals through their own partitioned traumas.
He scales the methodology up. He helps others navigate their own psychological quarantines using the exact same foundational architecture.
Let's consider the case of Diane Kowalski, who was one of his first students. She is stuck in a loop of these recursive, exhausting dreams about a massive library right after her mother's passing.
Yeah, and in the dream, she exhibits classic anxiety behaviors.
Very classic. She's frantically pulling books off shelves, feeling this profound sense of failure because she assumes she is supposed to decode some hidden message left by her mother and she just can't find it.
She approaches the subconscious space as a high-stakes test that she is actively failing, which, of course, only reinforces the trauma loop.
Right, so Marcus forces her to alter the variable of intention from the equation we discussed earlier. He basically instructs her to stop searching for data.
Which is hard to do.
It is, but instead she enters the lucid state and simply inhabits the space alongside the felt presence of her mother. And when she stops fighting the resistance, Diane realizes the library isn't a puzzle at all.
No, it's something entirely different.
It represents the only genuinely safe physical space she and her mother ever shared to escape an abusive father. It was a sanctuary, not a test.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, by just sitting in the paradox of that safe space, acknowledging both the waking trauma and the enduring love, her psychological healing finally begins.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the research doesn't rely solely on subjective psychological reporting.
Right, there's hard science here.
Yes. Dr. Amara Okafor, a neuroscientist at UC Berkeley, conducted functional MRI studies on individuals utilizing this specific lucid dream work, and the biological data is striking.
I really want to dig into the actual mechanisms of that data. What is functionally happening in their brains compared to, say, standard therapy?
Well, Dr. Okafor's imaging demonstrates that conscious dream work induces physical reorganization of neural pathways in a way waking therapy really struggles to achieve.
Really? How so?
Because in a waking state, severe trauma often fragments neural networks. It creates a state of hypervigilance where the prefrontal cortex
Logical integrating center.
where the prefrontal cortex cannot effectively regulate the limbic system, particularly the fear responses.
Got it.
Standard therapies like EMDR attempt to bridge this gap while the patient's default mode network, or DMN, is fully active and actively resisting.
Because the waking brain's defense mechanisms are online and fighting the integration.
Exactly. They see it as a threat.
Yeah.
However, during REM sleep, the brain is naturally devoid of norepinephrine, which is the primary stress neurotransmitter.
Oh, so the fear chemicals are just turned off.
Yes. And when you introduce lucidity conscious awareness into that specific neurochemical environment, the DMN is downregulated, very similar to the state achieved under certain psychedelics.
Wow, so the guard is down.
Completely. Okafor's data shows that participants aren't just having cathartic dreams. They are utilizing the neuroplasticity of the lucid state to actively force new high-density connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic structures.
And they can do it without triggering the waking brain's panic response.
Exactly.
So they are biologically rebuilding the neural bridges that the trauma originally burned down. They are executing localized neurogenesis.
They are structurally modifying the brain's hardware using the software of the lucid dream. And those structural changes, they persist fully into waking consciousness.
Okay, I'm tracking the neurobiology, but I am really struggling with a massive leap the source material takes next.
Uh-oh. What leap?
Well, if Marcus, Diane, and dozens of other participants are successfully rewiring their brains, why are they all reporting the exact same architectural markers?
Yes.
Right, like they aren't just using similar metaphors, they are encountering identical geometries. Are we still looking at isolated individual minds running similar software, or does the data suggest they are accessing a shared network?
This is the threshold where the clinical psychology transitions into the profound, unresolved mysteries of consciousness. Because the data points strongly toward a transpersonal dimension.
Yes, and we see this documented by David Kwan, a neuroscientist who also undergoes the dream work. During his lucid descents, he realizes he is navigating the exact same spiral staircase architecture Marcus detailed.
Yeah, but it goes beyond visual similarity, right?
Yes. Kwan reports this visceral topological awareness that other individuals are simultaneously climbing their own iterations of the staircase, and the geometry forces all of them to converge on a single central vault.
It directly challenges the assumption that our minds are isolated, hermetically sealed environments. It implies that at a certain depth of the subconscious, the individual partitions just fall away, revealing a shared foundational infrastructure.
And driven by this, Marcus actually executes a deliberate, deep, lucid descent. He bypasses the peripheral libraries and goes straight to the center of the spiral.
And that's where the real breakthrough happens.
Yeah. There, he encounters Sarah. Not a fragmented memory or a subconscious projection designed to comfort him, but what the framework identifies as her actual persisting consciousness.
Which changes everything.
It does. And the information she relays fundamentally redefines the trauma architecture. She states that consciousness is inherently fractal and unified. The locked room, the psychological vault, isn't a glitch or a punishment. It is a universal mercy.
A mechanism designed to prevent complete system collapse.
Exactly. She explains that whenever a localized consciousness encounters a threshold, it lacks the bandwidth to process, whether that is the sudden violence of death or, conversely, an experience of infinite, unadulterated love. The architecture automatically deploys a locked room.
It segments the overwhelming data so the localized mind doesn't shatter under the voltage.
Yeah, it buys the psyche time to expand its capacity.
This raises an important question regarding the empirical validity of these encounters, though.
Right.
Are these simply comforting hallucinations generated by a healing brain? Or is there measurable interaction with a reality outside the physical self?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah. And the source material highlights a 5-year study conducted at Stanford by Dr. Catherine Wells, focusing on what she classifies as transmortality consciousness.
Let's look at Dr. Wells' methodology, because claiming scientific proof of life after death usually trips every skeptical alarm I have.
Yeah.
How do you verify a transmortality interaction?
Wells utilized rigorous double-blind protocols. Subjects trained in this specific lucid dream work were tasked with interacting with deceased targets.
Okay.
The researchers, who had no direct contact with the dreamers, compiled verified, highly obscure historical data about the deceased. We are talking about the exact location of a missing heirloom or a specific undigitized phrase written in a private, locked diary.
Literally information the dreamer had absolutely zero waking access to, which eliminates the possibility of subconscious recall.
Correct. So the subjects would induce the lucid state, interact with the entity they perceived as the deceased, and ask the targeted questions.
And upon waking?
Upon waking, they reported the answers. Wells cross-referenced these reports against control groups. The data showed statistically significant anomalies.
Wow.
Participants were consistently retrieving hyper-specific, historically accurate data from the dream state that they could not possibly possess.
See, that provides measurable friction against the materialist framework. If the brain is just an organic machine generating a localized illusion of self, that data retrieval is impossible.
Right, it shouldn't happen.
But if the brain is Sarah's receiver antenna, tuning into a persistent fractal consciousness, it explains the mechanism perfectly. Death alters the nature of a relationship, but it does not sever the connection.
The signal is still broadcasting.
Exactly. The individual left behind simply has to upgrade their neurobiological receiver to tune into the new frequency.
And the conclusion of this framework is just a profound synthesis of these ideas. The locked room of trauma is only a temporary staging area.
It's not meant to be permanent.
No. Once the waking mind has integrated the partition data, once the resistance is worked through and the equation is balanced, the vault simply dissolves.
It isn't required anymore.
Exactly. The architecture shifts from a defensive quarantine into a vast, open garden of shared consciousness. The isolated self finally recognizes its native integration with the whole.
So, what does this all mean for you as you process this information? The ultimate heist we've been discussing isn't about escaping a prison of your own grief. It is about the painstaking, intentional work of stealing back your own awareness from the fragmentation of trauma.
It's about becoming whole again.
Yeah. We've spent our time today examining how individual human minds automatically construct these incredibly elaborate, impossible architectures. The libraries, the vaults, the spiral staircases. They are all built as a universal mercy to protect us from truths we just lack the bandwidth to face.
Which is an incredible defense mechanism.
It is. But if consciousness is truly collective and shared at its foundation, as the data from David Kwan and Dr. Wells suggests, it leaves you with a haunting question to consider.
Mm.
If individuals build mental vaults to survive trauma, what kind of massive, invisible locked rooms is our waking society collectively building and inhabiting right now? What vast cultural vaults have we constructed simply to protect ourselves from a shared reality we aren't quite ready to step into?
That really forces you to evaluate the boundaries of our consensus reality. And, what might happen if we collectively decided to dismantle the resistance and just unlock the door.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration prompts you to analyze the hidden architectures of your own mind, the nature of your resistance, and the vaults you might finally be ready to crack open. Until next time.